Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I have a Tip Tuesday for you guys. I know it's been a hot minute since I've had a Tip Tuesday video, and honestly, I leave to go camping in less than 12 hours, so I really should be packing and doing all those kind of things, but instead, I'm playing with stamps and creating a Tip Tuesday video just for you guys so you can watch this while I'm gone, because I just could not wait to show you this. So recently on my channel, I shared with you the Storyteller Devotional Kit unboxing from Illustrated Faith. This is the newest devotional kit, and you guys, it is a good one. You definitely want to check out that unboxing. There is a giveaway going on with that unboxing, so I'll link that down below. You can get in on that. But there is this stamp set that's included in the devotional kit. If you order the physical kit, it's got these two large typewriters. Now you could very easily just stamp these down into your Bible page, color it in with some markers, and call it good. But you know me, I gotta take everything to the next level. I wanted to share with you some ideas and tips for paper piecing with this stamp to kind of get fun and creative and just spend some time with that stamp and make the most out of your stamp. I think sometimes we can get a little bit bored by just your standard stamping, and so this is a project that you could sit down, take an afternoon, make several of these all at once, and then you're ready to go. So I'm going to show you how we paper piece this together. What I have here is a little booklet of papers. Now for something like this, I actually prefer to use the 6x6 or 6x8 instead of 12x12 papers, just because the print is usually a little bit smaller on these smaller papers. This print on a 12x12 would be much larger, which would still be cute, but with a small stamp like this, I think it's better to use the smaller papers. I'll try to link some options down below. I think Illustrated Faith still has some over at Dayspring. I'll link those down below for you guys. I just kind of went through my stash and tried to find something that had papers and colors that coordinated with the kit and had some prints that I liked. So I got this one. I think this is a really old paper from my stash. I don't think you can get this one anymore. If I can find it, I'll link it down below, but I'm just trying to use up some scraps. And this is also a great way to use up scrap paper. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to pull out the papers that I have here and kind of show you what we're going to do. So I've already got my stamp loaded up on the block. I'm going to use this one down here just because it has a whole bunch of different smaller pieces. That way I can use a lot more papers. You can do the same technique with this other typewriter as well. So I've got it loaded up on a 3x4 stamp block, and I will have everything linked down below for you guys. And you're just going to want to ink up your stamp and start by stamping it on some plain cardstock. So plain colored cardstock, whatever you want your base to be. So if anything doesn't get covered up, the white is going to be what shows, and you can see that on this one here, this white down here, the white on the knobs. Of course you can go in and color that, but maybe you want to stamp on foiled paper or pattern paper. Like, get crazy, get wild, explore, have fun with what you want your base to be. But this is going to be our base layer, so I'm going to set that aside for just a second. And then you're going to want to stamp out, here's my remnants, stamp out on a whole bunch of different patterned papers. So let me go ahead, I'm going to skip forward, and I will stamp out on these different pattern papers that I have here. Okay, so I've got my layers. You can stamp on as many or as few as you want. You can see here I just stuck with 3 different papers, but if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of these all at once, you could be stamping on, I don't know, 5, 10, 12 different papers and kind of mix and match all the different pieces. And really you're just going to kind of go in and decide how much you want to customize. So let's change this one up just a little bit. We'll do it slightly different than this one. So the trick with this is when you're cutting these pieces out, you want to cut down the center of the black stamped line, and that way when you stick it on your base, you will still have some of the stamped image poking through, and that's where you get it looking like it's all just stamped down in those different colors. I'll kind of show you what I mean. So let's start with this big kind of lighter gray piece down here at the top here. I'm actually going to cut it out of this darker paper, and so I'm going to cut down the center of the black stamped line. And again, you can get as wild and crazy if you wanted to do each of the individual keys, you could. If you want to do, you know, the little pieces, you can. If you just want to do the big pieces. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm going to be mindful that I don't cut into the other areas, because I can cut those out and use them on another piece. So like right in here, I'm going to be careful that I don't cut into this piece here, because I could cut this out and use it on another typewriter. So you're not wasting paper. You can get multiple images out of this process. So let me go ahead and put you on fast forward, and I'm going to cut out all of these different pieces. Okay, so we have all of our little pieces cut out, and what you'll notice for some of these, I didn't cut out these smaller pieces. I'm just gonna stack paper on top of here. Also, when cutting into, or cutting out, I guess, those little pieces, you could go in there with a craft knife and cut those out. That way you're not cutting into that larger image if you're wanting to save your paper, but I'm not gonna get that persnickety about it. Now, before I stick these down, if you are cutting out of like really, really thick cardstocks, really thick papers that have a white core, and that white edge bothers you, this paper is not so bad, but if you have a thicker paper, it's more noticeable. You can take a black marker, black brush pen, and just go over all of the edges of your cutout pieces. That way it covers up the white core, and it's just gonna help it blend into the black stamping that you've already done. Now, I don't need to do that necessarily with this paper because it's really thin paper, so that white isn't gonna bother me, but if you're cutting out of really thick cardstocks or specialty papers, you may notice that white core, especially as you turn the image on its side, you'll be able to see those white bits. If you go over it with that black pen, it's gonna really help it blend even more into the stamping that you've already done on your paper. So let's go ahead and move all these pieces. And I like to start assembling here. So I'm gonna start with this pink piece. Now I find for delicate areas like this, a glue pen seems to work the best for me. This one is from Zig. I've used this for foiling. It is a two-way pen. So basically if you adhere two things together while the glue is still wet and blue, it's a permanent bond. If you put the glue down, let it dry until it's clear, then it's tacky and repositionable. So you can kind of use it two different ways. But I'm gonna go ahead and just, like a pen, color in the area that I'm going to stick that paper down into. And I can get into some of those smaller little nooks and crannies with that pen. And while it's still wet and still fairly blue, I can go ahead and stick down that paper piece into that area on my base cardstock here. And then I'm just gonna continue to layer this up. Like I said, I'm gonna put this bigger piece down, and then I'll layer the smaller pieces over the top of it. Just keep in mind, if you use, you know, a lot of papers or specialty papers, it's gonna increase the bulkiness of this die cut. So if you're putting it into something like a journaling Bible, and you're using, you know, fancy glitter papers and things like that, just keep that in mind, that it's gonna get, you know, thick the more layers that you put on there. So we've got this piece down here. And you can see this really does go pretty quickly. It's just the fussy cutting. I don't love to fussy cut, but this is a project that you could, like, you know, turn on some Netflix, sit down for the evening, and just cut out, you know, stamp and cut out paper. And you can do multiple all at one time. And you can see how that just blends right into the stamped image on that base. So you can see here, I didn't cut out this area. I'm just gonna stack this piece right on top. If I wanted less bulk, I could cut that out, but I wanna save myself from cutting because I hate cutting. And kind of the trick with this is to use a good pair of scissors. So I like these ones from Tim Holtz. I also have some Cutter Bee ones. I will link them all down below for you guys. A small, nice, precise, sharp pair of scissors is gonna make this a lot easier. I'm also gonna link a Tip Tuesday all about fussy cutting, and it kind of gives you some tips for how to turn the paper and get good results with fussy cutting. So I will link that down below for you guys for that resource as well. And this final piece here, and you can see that comes together pretty quickly. And I could go in and cut out, you know, this other layer and the feet and things like that, but that's pretty customized for my liking. And then what I like to do is then go in with markers. So I have this one here is from Creative Devotion. It's a gold marker. You could also use Signo Uniball gel pens. They have silver and glitter and white and things like that. And then I like to go in and add accents and details, especially to something like this vintage typewriter that you know is going to have metallic accents. Just be careful. I wasn't careful there. Be careful because some of these markers are quite opaque, so it is going to cover up your stamped lines. So you just want to be mindful of that as you color in these different areas. But I like to just go in and add a little bit of gold detail and then call that good. So now your base later could actually be the page of your Bible, but I like to work on a separate piece of cardstock, and then I can go ahead and fussy cut this out and then have that as a die cut piece that then I can use. And again, you could stick a little piece of paper behind here so it looks like you've typed out on a piece of paper. Now I also wanted to show you another option for this stamp. It isn't necessarily paper piecing, but I wanted to show you embossing these as well. So let me go ahead and take this one off, and I'm going to emboss this on this green paper so you can see how that looks. So let me get all my embossing goodies. Okay, so I have an entire Tip Tuesday all about embossing. If you want to see that in detail, I will link that down below as well. But I'm just going to ink this stamp up with some clear, sticky Versamark ink. And then I chose a metallic gold powder. Excuse my puppies in the background. A metallic gold powder because I thought it would work really well with the like metallic of the typewriter. Now I forgot to prep with my powder tool ahead of time, so we'll see. This might be a total epic failure. I was paying attention to my dogs barking and totally forgot to do that first, so we'll see what happens. I'm just going to go ahead and shake this onto that stamped image. And then I'll go ahead and heat set that with my heat tool. Okay, so there's the first pass. I'm feeling like it's not super opaque, so I'm actually going to stamp over it one more time. This would be easier if you were working with a stamp positioning tool, but I'm just gonna do it with my stamp block. I'm gonna remember to use my powder tool first this time, so I'm just gonna prep this. This makes sure that the embossing powder only sticks to the stamped image. It's not gonna stick to any fingerprints or moisture that might be on the page. So I'm gonna re-ink this stamp, and since it's clear and I'm using a clear block, I should be able to get right over the top of it and get a fairly decent stamped impression. Okay, so I got my head right over there. I may lose some of the smaller detail, but we'll kind of see how it goes here. Okay, so there is my typewriter, and then I can go ahead and just fussy cut this out. Now you're probably wondering if you could combine these two techniques. Now it would be a little bit difficult because with the paper piecing, one of the reasons it works so well is because of the black stamped image, your lines just kind of blend into each other and meld together. But when you're cutting down the center part of these embossed lines, they're not going to blend together as well, and you're going to be able to see your cut marks and things because the embossing powder is shiny and it's just a different material. So you won't get as good results if you try that paper piecing technique with embossed stamping. So just keep that in mind. You kind of have to pick or choose. You might be able to go in with a embossing pen and like color in the keys on this stamp and then add your embossing powder and emboss the keys if you wanted to, but as far as the entire image, it probably wouldn't work as well. So let me go ahead and just cut this out, and then you'll see what this looks like. Okay, so there's our die cut piece. Now I would probably take this a step further, and just because that paper that I used was pretty light and my embossing powder is pretty light, I would probably go in here and darken up some areas of this image with a marker or like a pen, just to add a little bit more like definition to the image. I'm just being careful because these are permanent markers and it will actually show up on the embossing itself if I'm not careful. So I'm just kind of going into some of the areas on the stamp and just adding some shading detail to bring back some of the detail of the stamp that was lost with that embossing. And you can see how that starts to kind of bring back some of that image a little bit, and that way it's a little bit easier to see. So that just gives you a couple of different options for ways to use the Storyteller stamp set from the Storyteller devotional kit. Again, I'll have that unboxing down below if you want to check out that kit. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Check out the description box for links to everything that I talked about today. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.